And if you don't get there, you'll at least land on, no, it's reach for the moon. But even if you don't get there, you'll land among the stars. And
I feel like I'll be hanging from the moon on with like my underwear or something, just dangling, and be like, is this what it was supposed to look like?
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
I'm so excited. I booked my hair appointment. Like, if you're not watching on the video, I have like a mane of hair right now. And I'd planned to do something kind of a little different color-wise and a little funky that required long hair. Well, I didn't require long hair, but I think it would be better with long hair. And then I obviously made the decision that I'm going to go bugger off on a boat for a couple of months. So it didn't really feel like the right time to go kind of funky hair color. But it's been well over a year. Like, it's been like 15 months, I think, 16 months since I've had my hair cut. So, I mean, it's looking pretty good for the fact that it hasn't been cut in that period of time, but can't wait. I'm so excited.
There's something so like lightening about getting your hair cut, especially when you have longer hair and you go shorter. Like, literally the weight that's released. I don't think people realize how much, like, if you don't have hair that you have to put up and wear and whatnot, like it's heavy. Like, there's some work involved. Especially
because I have very fine hair, but I have a lot of it, so it does have some serious weight to it. I like, afterwards, I'm always like, oh, look, I can move my head again. It's really fun. I mean, you won't see it for a few more episodes, but it is coming, and I can't wait. Can't wait to get rid of it. And I think also just because I'm in this kind of major transition time right now, like there is definitely something about like out with the old, like getting rid of the old and in with the new, that definitely feels very appropriate for where I'm at. Cathartic. Yes.
Isn't it amazing how you can, like, you have a word and then you think about it for a second? Like, does that ever happen to you? Like, the amount of times, like, there, and then there's the different kinds of there. Are we talking about apostrophes or I's or E's? And I'll say it, and then it's like, does that word sound weird? Is that a word? There.
Right.
There. And like you say it in different tones.
Once you've said it too many times, then it loses all meaning. And it's like, this is just a sound at this point.
Right. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one.
Oh, you're definitely not the only one. I'm sure our listeners will also confirm that you're definitely not the only one. So the whole out with the old and in with the new feels very apt for today, because today's podcast we are going to be should be dropping just before New Year's Eve. And there's always this big thing around this time of year about like new starts, new beginnings. If you're feeling that right now, we did an episode a couple of years back on like the whole new year, new you kind of thing that I highly recommend listening to because it went to places that we did not expect it to go, but we came off of it.
Sound, didn't it? Right?
Yes, because we finished it. We're like, oh my god, that was so good, and then we realized we hadn't hit record, and we were like, no. But the content was so good, we were like, it's good enough. We will just deal with the sound being as it is right now, because there's no way we could recreate that a second time. So if you're like in that space, I highly recommend going back and listening to that episode, because it's definitely something that will probably resonate with you. But today we're talking about something just sort of adjacent to this, which is that at the beginning of the new year, a lot of people very much focus on goal setting and like something happened to the back of my throat then. Excuse me. And they're very much like, what are my goals for the year? What am I going to achieve this year? And it's like very much a time of year where people like set goals. And we're not very big on goal setting here at the Universal Needs. We do things a little differently. Shocking, I know. So the question is like, what is the problem with goal setting? And I would say there's nothing inherent. I wouldn't say there's an inherent problem with goal setting. I would actually say it's more how we relate to the goals that we have set that causes the big issues. And the reason for this, and this kind of came out of a session I had with a client recently, where they were talking about the number of steps that they had done. And they had set themselves a goal of doing 5,000 steps a day. And they were talking about like what they'd done. I think it was the day before or something. Like, well, I only did like 4,850 steps. I didn't do the full 5,000, but you know, kind of thing. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. So now bear in mind, this is somebody who has come from doing very, very few steps recently. No judgment. That's just where they've been at. They've been in a place where they've needed to recoup and rest. So they really haven't been doing a lot of walking. And I'm like, did you hear what you just said then? You've gone from like maybe 100 steps or something, like walking around your apartment, to you had did yesterday 4,850 steps. And how do you feel about that? And they were like, well, it wasn't the 5,000. I'm like, and therein lies the problem with goal setting. Because sometimes when we set goals, we tend to set significant goals. I mean, we get taught to set stretch goals, something that's going to stretch you out of your comfort zone. It's a little bit of a push. Yeah. And if you don't get there, you'll at least land on, no, it's reach for the moon. But even if you don't get there, you'll land among the stars. And
I feel like I'll be hanging from the moon on with like my underwear or something, just dangling and be like, is this what it was supposed to look like?
But I actually think that saying is a really interesting, like, this is the what we're talking about today. The saying is like, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, at least you'll land among the stars. We seem to forget the second part of that saying. Well, it's like, shoot for the moon, and then if you don't hit it, well, you're fucked up because you didn't hit the moon. Like, that's kind of how
now you're floating in outer space and there's no end in sight. And that's how it feels. Like, if you reach for the moon and you're like, you could be sitting pretty on a star, but like feel like you're going towards a black hole vacuum because the moon's still over there. Like,
yeah. I think the problem with it is that what we do, and this is when we do these kind of stretch goals, these push goals, these significant goals, is that if we don't hit the goal, we focus on the bit that we missed, as in how far we were away from the goal. We don't focus on what is normally a significant amount of progress that has been created. So it's like this client, they focused on the 150 steps that they hadn't done, rather than the 4,850 that they had done, which was probably a good 4,500 higher than they had been doing recently. Like, that's huge. That is a massive achievement. And I think that's what tends to happen, is that we get so focused on the goal. And because, I mean, we talked about this in the last episode, and we've talked about this in innumerable episodes, because we have this conditioning in our society that compromises our value need and compromises our sense of self-worth and self-esteem. We are kind of trained to look for the things that will make us feel bad about ourselves. We've been trained by society, and we've trained ourselves to look for the, like, where we're not doing good enough. Where am I not good enough? And so that's what happens, is we set this big goal, and then when we don't hit the goal, we focus on the not good enough, which is the bit that we didn't do. We don't focus on the more than good enough, which is the bit that we did do. And this is one of the reasons that this time of year, goal setting is definitely not how we approach the new year. I mean, put aside for 1 second that anytime we try and plan anything, the universe comes along and goes, okay, have fun with that. And then the next thing we know, we're like off in a 90-degree angle direction, going completely
single time. Personally, professionally, like this has remained a consistent, like, this is a tested and proven method of it doesn't fucking work. Like,
yes,
it just doesn't fucking work. Like, I'm sorry. Right. Like, it's good to have ideas, and like, we're going to talk about how you can do goals in a way that makes setbacks not feel like setbacks. And it's, there's ways to do it, but God, like, it's taken us a long time, and we still want, like, we still try, like, we're like, oh, we want it to look like this, and then we look at each other, we're like, and
it's not.
It's not. So here we are.
So what are we going to create from where we're at? And that's like that's a kind of slightly different episode. But let's get back into where the issue is with goal setting and how we can start to do things differently. As I said, the big challenge with this is that we tend to just focus on these big, significant goals. Like, and it's like, I want to be able to run a marathon. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you haven't ever run in your life, running a 5K is a big achievement. Running 1K is an achievement. Running down the freaking street is an achievement if you've never run in your life. But we get so
sweating when I put on my sneakers. So nope, not doing it.
But it's like if we don't hit the marathon, we don't allow ourselves to feel good about any of the stuff that we did on the way. And like, this is a good example from my own life. I was actually training to do a marathon at one point in my life. Funny story that we'll come back to at the end of this is that I was and I've never been a runner. Running was never my thing. And so I was having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine who was undergoing some serious medical issues. And this person was a distance runner. She was somebody who'd run a lot. She was always running. It was her thing. But she was like, we were having a conversation over a messaging service. And at the time we were having the conversation, she had a collapsed lung. And she was like, I could do my next distance training thing in the UK where you are. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that. I can come down and support you. She's like, you could do it with me. And I'm like, this person has a collapsed lung and they're up for this. I really don't have an excuse. Like, I don't, and there's nothing I can say at this point that will feel justified in me going, no. So, and I decided I was going to start training for a marathon. And one of the things that was big for me about it was I wanted to make it fun, because the idea of running felt boring and hard to me. And so I wanted to find a way, and I did that. And I find different ways of doing things and making it fun. And as it turned out, I had a problem with my knee that meant that I wasn't able to continue doing the marathon training. So I stopped and I found other forms of exercise that resonated with me. And as it turned out, we didn't, as usual, the plans changed dramatically. So none of that ended up happening. But just because I was at one point, I was keeping a blog where I was keeping track of all of my, I would monitor like my training sessions, and I would like keep a track of the distance I traveled. I don't actually know off the top of my head what that. I just suddenly realized I have my phone on airplane mode. I was going to look it up, and I'm like, I don't know off the top of my head what it was. I don't know what the number I got to was. But I know it was a hell of a lot more miles than I'd ever run in my life before that point. But I still, at that point in time, I wasn't doing my needs work. I still was like, but I never did the marathon. But I never did the marathon. But I never did the marathon. So the cool thing about this is that we'll give you the little creation thing now, because it kind of segues nicely on from what I'm just sharing about, is that I've always wanted to finish a marathon. It was on my bucket list to finish a marathon. So like 5 years ago, I think it was, on my Celebrate Being Alive Day that Serena and I were doing, I'd run out to do an errand in the morning, and Serena came to pick me up to go to breakfast. And I said, we need to make a stop on the way to breakfast. And Serena was like, okay. I was like, it's the southernmost marathon today. And she looks at me and I'm like, it's on my bucket list to finish a marathon. And like, I just watched this look of horror, like pass across her face. And I'm like, it's not on my bucket list to start a marathon. And she's like, at that point I saw the smile creep in, and I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, you get where I'm coming from now. So what we did was I can't run a marathon because of my knee, which means that running an entire marathon isn't going to be a thing for me. But we could go and finish a marathon. So we went down to the finish line, and we have video footage of that. I mean, the organizers were so amazing when they found out it was the Celebrate Being Alive Day and what that was all about and why we were doing it. And they were like, oh, absolutely. And obviously we were very mindful, very demure, very mindful not to kind of get in the way of other runners. So we were very careful. Like, we didn't want to block anybody else's experience. We want us doing what we were doing to negatively impact them. But when there was a free run, there was a free space where there were no runners. We did the last leg of the marathon in our flip-flops, and we got to celebrate across the finish line, and we got given medals, which I felt really bad wearing because I'm like, I did not earn this. Like,
people were congratulating us. They're like, good job. Yes. We're like, no.
And it was really funny because we were taking some photos at the end of the marathon, and they had these kind of ice packs so you could like cool off. Because I mean, we live in the tropics here, so it's freaking hot to be doing a marathon. And I got this photo of Serena with the ice pack on her head, and I don't know how, but the ice pack burst and like literally dropped down her back with like ice cold water. And we kind of felt like that was a little bit of like the universe rebalancing itself, because we'd like had this experience that we were getting congratulated for something we hadn't been doing. I was like, well, it kind of feels apt that we have a ice water plunge down our back at the same time. So yeah, it was, but that was a cool way of doing it, where it's like, what can we create from where we're at, from what is possible, that will get us as close as possible to what it was that we were trying to create. And that's something both of us have done for a long time, is that we're like, okay, if I can't do this thing on my bucket list, what can I do that's kind of close enough to the thing on my bucket list that I can still check it off?
How close can I get? And there's always a way to get closer. Like,
yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so this is like one of the things, is that if something happens, which means that you're no longer able to achieve that goal, at that point, like, what can I create from here that will feel in alignment with that goal, that will get me to a place I can feel good about and I can enjoy without being able to, like, maybe it's physically, maybe it's financially, maybe it's like mentally, maybe it's energetically. I'm not capable of doing that maybe right now, or maybe even ever, in which case, here's the thing I'm going to do instead. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that one of the things that can be that we find is very helpful when it comes to goal setting, and the approach that we take when it comes to meeting needs and that we teach within the program, is that we actually do almost the opposite of goal setting. Because the goal setting, that when we set these big goals, we set this one big goal that's massive and out there in the distance, that's really hard to achieve. And we like, maybe there are some milestones on the way, but it's like, that's the objective, is to get to that. Well, when it comes to, and the thing about it is that makes it hard. Like that, the very definition of setting a big goal is that it's going to be hard to achieve it. Now, when it comes to meeting your needs, we want the opposite experience. We do not want it to be hard. We want it to feel easy. We want it to feel simple. We want it to feel doable. And we want it to be something that we are going to feel encouraged to do more of. And so what we do when it comes to need setting is we take the exact opposite approach, which is we set the goal is to do one thing. I mean, a lot of the times it's one thing to meet each of the needs each day. Sometimes it might be one thing to meet one need. Sometimes it might be one thing to meet one group of needs. But the idea is to make it feel achievable and doable, because if you make it achievable and doable, it makes it super quick and easy for you to hit that first goal. When you hit that goal, because of how our brain chemistry works, one of our happy hormones, dopamine, is we get a hit of dopamine when we set a small goal and hit it. So what ends up happening is that when we set that small goal and we hit it, we get a dopamine hit. And when we get a dopamine hit, we're actually more likely to do more of the same kinds of things, or want to do more of the sorts of things that create that dopamine hit. So what we do is we say we want to set the target is small, simple, easy. And then we want to build on it. And on that, we want to build bonuses, like things that we didn't set out to do that day, but they're great things that meet the needs. And it's like, oh, I get to feel good about this. I get to feel good about this. I get to feel good about this. But not only that, but then everything above and beyond what we've set as a target is that bonus. And we get to feel good every time we do something extra to meet the need today. So say today, my meeting of the need for my foundation function need was to take a sip of water. I've already done that multiple times today and on this podcast as well. I also have a smoothie next to me. I also have an herbal tea next to me. Anytime I drink either of those two, I get a bonus, because that's not the thing I was going to do to meet my foundation function need for the day, but it's another thing I get to do, and I get to have that extra like bonus. And the thing about dopamine production is that if you have a goal, which is like one big goal, you might get a dopamine hit at the end of that goal. If you split that goal into 10 more manageable chunks, you get a dopamine hit every time you achieve one of those chunks. If you split it into 100, you get a dopamine hit every time you hit one of those hundreds. Now, what's important to do with this is it's important to balance out the dopamine hacking and the chunking. So chunking is like, in order to make something feel more doable, sometimes if something feels overwhelming because there are too many steps to it, we're going to chunk up. We're going to build those chunks into bigger pots, basically. So it's like, rather than doing 26 things, we actually only have 3 things to worry about. Or it may be that if a goal feels too big or a task feels too big, we break it down into smaller chunks. So it's like, we know what to do. It's like, my goal is to run a marathon. Well, the first step of that is to get the sneakers. And the second step is to do some research on training. And the third step is to do a training schedule. And the fourth step is to go out and do your first training session. So it's like, sometimes we need the smaller chunks to be able to figure out what the path is to be able to achieve said goal. But the cool thing is that what we want to do is we want to have as many chunks as we can without getting overwhelmed, because if we set each of those as little goals, every time we hit them, we get that dopamine hit. And that then helps us to want to do more of those kinds of things. I feel like you're wanting to jump in.
Yeah, but it's one of those, like, I feel like it's coming up. Like,
go for it. I have another place I'm going, but yeah, we can.
And it might be this plate. Like, I'm just jumping. I know where this is going. Anyway, we're gonna put it out there now, and then probably circle back to it. big thing that, like, it was the antithesis of goal setting for me. Don't set numbers. Try not to set dates. The things that you can like hyper focus on, especially like weight loss for me was a big thing. Like, I'd set a number, and if I didn't get to that number, it didn't matter if I was 1 pound away from that number, but that 1 pound would get into my head and make everything else a complete loss in my mind. But it's like, I did reach my goal because I feel better in my clothes. I feel healthier. I'm craving better foods and stuff. So the goal was met, but that 1 pound was in my head. Like, you did not reach your goal. So not setting those finite, like, this, it has to look like this number on this day in this way. The more you can kind of create the, like, you want to embody the kind of idea in the feeling of the goal, but like when you put those quantitative nature things in there, it just makes it so much harder to, not necessarily harder to achieve, but if you don't achieve it, the impact it has to your needs negatively
it gives you a stick to beat yourself with. It sets the thing that is like, oh, here's where we've missed by now, and it's like nuance. It's important to have balance with this, because if we're trying to achieve a certain income, or we're trying to save a certain amount of money because that's what we need for a certain thing, then there are some times where it can be helpful. But when, like, what Serena's talking about here is like, a lot of the time, like, we'll set an amount, like, so it's like, I got to drink 2 liters of water a day. Or I've got to meditate at least 20 minutes a day. I've got to sleep at least 8 hours a day. I've got to exercise for at least an hour a day. And the problem is, when we do that, it makes it very easy to be able to miss that goal and then focus on the thing that we've missed the goal by. So like when it comes to me, like, I'm like, I got to drink water today.
Done.
Goal met. If I give myself, I've got to drink 2 liters of water today, I'm like, God, all I'd be thinking about is all the amount I still have to drink. Now, the reality is, when Serena and I are podcasting, I know I'm going to drink way more than 2 liters of water in a day. I mean, I don't even know how much is in this. It's a pretty big glass. It's actually technically a vase, but I like big glasses and it works. So that's what I got. I've already refilled this once. This is a 20-ounce mug. I'm on my second one of these for the day. This is a 42-ounce cup. I'm nearly had an entire one of those today. I'm probably well over 2 liters already in how much I've actually consumed, but I'm not focused on that. I'm not thinking about the number. I'm just getting to, I've drunk my water and I get to enjoy it every time I do it again, rather than every time I do it, think, oh, I've still got this to go. 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 And that's one of the things that can, like, it really, not only does it give you this stick to beat yourself at the end, but the experience as you're doing it is shitty. Like, it feels crappy. All you're focused on, like if you're at the gym and it's like, I got to do 100 reps, you do 10, all you're focusing on is that I've still got 90 to go, versus I want to do this machine for as long as I can until I feel good about myself, or I feel good about what I've achieved today. And it's like, that could be at 5, it could be at 10, it could be at 20. And it may be like, actually, I feel good after 10. I'm going to do another 5. Actually, I could still go. I could do another 5. And it's like, I do it with walking. Like, I love walking. And walking is one of those things. I set my podcast going, not our podcast, different podcasts. I listen to other podcasts while I'm out walking. And I often will just keep going because I'm perfectly happy walking. And it's like, my goal is to go for a walk. And then all of a sudden I've walked 5 miles. I'm like, whoa, how did that happen? Because I just, off I went, kept going. But if I'd set myself a goal of 5 miles, I'd spent the first 4.5 going, oh God, I've still got another 3 miles to go. I've still got another 2 miles to go. I've still got another 1 mile to go. And it's like, we focus on the thing that we haven't done rather than the thing that we have done. And I think that's one of the most important things about like turning around this goal setting stuff. And is we focus on what we haven't done rather than what we have. And we focus on what we haven't done because we have low self-worth, because we have compromised value need. So we're looking for the things that are not good enough. So we look for the things that we're not doing rather than the things that we are doing. And so if you can combine this goal setting with being very intentional about looking for the things that you are doing, because the cool thing is, it's been a minute since I've said this, but everything you do every second of every day is done to meet your needs. What are you laughing at?
Literally a minute. I'm like, oh, what is she going to say? I'm like, oh.
I don't think I've said that on the podcast for a second, have I?
It was like 3 podcasts ago, but yeah. So no, it has been a minute, but I'm just like, what is it? Oh, that. But which is true. It's a very important thing to repeat over and over again.
Because everything you do every second of every day is done to meet your needs. You're constantly doing things that you can feel good about. You're constantly doing things like being here on this podcast. Like, this is meeting my needs right now. Drinking a bit of herbal tea, that's meeting my needs right now. Checking my phone to connect with my friends, that's meeting my needs. Like, going out for a walk, that's meeting my needs. And it's like, yeah, we like. And I think that the one of the things that we can do to actually support our needs is to focus on the things that we are doing versus the things that we are not doing. Now, we did talk about last time, like, the things that we do don't change our value, or like, they don't make us more valuable because we're doing more things. We need to work on our value need being intrinsic and innate because it exists and not for any other reason. And we still get to feel good about maybe our growth need being met, maybe our possibility need being met, maybe our giving value need being met, maybe our emotional experience expression need being met, maybe our love need being met because we're doing something that shows that we're loving ourselves. Like, we get to feel good about this every time. And so one of the things that can help, like, when you're starting to do this, is at the end of the day, like, a lot of the time, people talk about the importance of like a gratitude journal, or having some gratitudes at the end of the day. If you don't yet know what the needs practice is, if you haven't gone through the program, you don't know what the needs practice is. Firstly, if you can, get yourself on that, because the needs practice is an absolute game changer for every area of your life. But if you haven't got to that point yet, one thing you can do at the end of the day is you can start to list out what are the things that you've done that day. What are the things that you can feel good about that you've done that day? And what are the things that you can feel grateful that you have done that day? Because it can actually become part of your gratitude practice. You can combine these things to create this gratitude practice. But what it also is doing is it's starting to train your brain to look for the things that you are doing, look for the things that you have achieved. So like that client of mine who was like, didn't hit her 5,000 steps. One of these, I walked 4,850 steps a day. Yay me. That's awesome. And so it's like we start to acknowledge the things that we are doing. And what it does is it trains our brains to start to look for the things that we are doing. So we get to feel good about the things that we are doing rather than focusing on things that we're not doing, which is like creating this exacerbation to this low self-worth that we're already feeling. I saw you taking notes.
I did take notes. And I actually remember what my notes. It's always when I write it down, like I remember. And then I start talking and get in my own fucking way with it. Yes, I got it again. Goal setting like this allows you to pivot too, which I think is so important. There's so many times, like when you were talking about the gym, like I used to go to the gym and I had an unhealthy addiction with the gym. Like I used to get, like I'd go hard, I'd burn myself out and then not be able to do a damn thing. So like, which is oftentimes, especially in that kind of goal setting, like we were like, go, 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 go. And then it's like, oh, I didn't think about what the long term was going to be on this. Yes. But you had mentioned being like, oh, I need to do this amount of time on a machine, or I need to do this many reps. Something that I have discovered since changing the way that I goal set is that without setting, like I have to do the stationary bike for 10 minutes. I hated the bicycle, but I'd say I had to do 15 minutes. I have to do 200 miles. I had to do whatever the thing was, whatever it was in there. It didn't matter if like my knees were hurting, my body was hurting. Every part of my being was like, I do not want to be doing this bike. But I'm like, no, I said I have to do the bike for 15 minutes. So I'm going to stick to my guns and I'm going to do the bike. You want to know what happened once my mindset started to change? I get on the bike 2 minutes. I'm like, not for me. Find a machine that I actually enjoy doing and do like 30 minutes without even thinking about it. Still getting the exercise, still doing good for my body. But once it didn't have to look that certain way on that certain thing for that certain amount of time it opened up so much opportunity to be like, okay, well, that's not really working for, I get that people say that works, but not for me. But that thing over there, that's my jam. Like, watch me kill it on that. And then you come off feeling good and you're like, yeah. And it's like, it's so amazing how we kind of like make ourselves fit these goals that sometimes we set a goal and then all of a sudden life changes, you change, like something changes and that goal it doesn't have the same meaning, but we still go for it because we set the goal. Like,
right. Well, and the interesting thing is that like, that's a good example whereby if you were on the bike, you'd probably be miserable the entire time you were on the bike.
Every time.
If you were on the other machine, you probably enjoyed it. So so it's like, even just looking at that, you could do 10 minutes on the bike and 10 minutes on a machine that you really enjoy doing. That's your jam. And you're going to maybe hit the same sort of level of your foundation function need being met. But in actual fact, one of them is going to compromise your love need. It's going to compromise your emotional experience expression need. It's going to compromise your personal planning because you're probably like, I don't have a choice. I've got to do this. And the other one is going to be like, I'm going to meet my love need because I'm doing something I love doing. I'm going to meet my emotional experience expression need because look, this is fun. I'm going to meet my personal planning because I'm choosing to do this because it feels better for me. And like, you take the same situation and because you've pivoted, because you're like, maybe the thing you have in your head is I want to do some time on the bike. Maybe you do a minute on the bike. You're like, cool, now what? Like, and you pivot to go something.
I did some time.
You've done some time on the bike and now you can find something that actually is going to support all the other needs better. Or it may be that actually, rather than the goal being, I've got some time on the bike, I want to spend 20 minutes in the gym doing activity. And again, like we talk about like trying not to put amounts on things. Maybe it's just, I just want to go to the gym. I mean, sometimes again, it's that balance point because sometimes like, well, I go to the gym, I walked in and I walked out. Yay. I went to the gym. Not quite the same thing. And sometimes we want to give ourselves like, I want to do at least 5 minutes on a machine.
You give yourself a container to kind of operate within, but it's not a box. Like, you're not covered. You can step out of the container.
Exactly. And so there's a process or an exercise that I give to a lot of my clients around this time of year if they're wanting, because a lot of people, they want to kind of be intentional about what they want to create in the year ahead. And there's an exercise that I give clients, which is very, very different to goal setting, because of how it's approached. So what we do is we pick a life area, like something that we want to work on, something we would like to develop, something we'd like to improve, something we'd like to grow through the course of the year. And it may be an intimate relationship, it may be health and wellness, it may be career, it could be anything. So we start off with those, and generally speaking, I think it's good to have two. That's like a good starting point, because also it means that you can kind of trade them off and be like, 1 week I'm going to do a bit on this, and the next week I'm going to do a bit on that. Maximum I would say is 4. 4 is pushing it, but it means you could do like 1 week a month. So you could there's a way of doing it that potentially, excuse me, feels more doable. So the first thing you want to do is you want to think about that life area, that thing that you want to do something with. And what I do is I get clients to put together a list of words that they want to have associated with that life area, and a list of emotions they want to feel when they're engaging with that life area. That's the first thing, is like, what are the words I want? So if it's like health and wellness, it could be like, I want to feel strong. I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel good in my body. Like, it could be phrases. It doesn't have to be specific words. But emotions might be, I want to feel fun, like when I'm engaging with my health and wellness. We don't tend to think about it in these terms. We tend to think we've got to think about the thing we're trying to achieve, and that's all we're thinking about. And it's like, we're going to do it whatever we I don't know what happened to the voice then.
That's your goal setter voice.
That's my this is fucking stupid voice. Like I'm just going to do the goal, and I don't care how I feel on the way there, and I don't care what it takes to get there. I'm going to get there no matter what. And it's like, we make ourselves miserable in trying to get these goals. And yeah, we might have this moment where we feel good, where we hit the goal, and then very quickly afterwards we're like, it sucked all the way up there, and I don't actually feel as good as I thought I was going to feel. Because a lot of the time, the goal setting, here's the other thing. When it comes to goal setting, a lot of the time with the goal setting, we set the goals that we think are going to meet our needs. And the goals that actually meet our needs and the goals that we think are going to meet our needs are often very different. Very different. Now, we don't realize we're doing that. We don't sit there and, like, if you haven't done any needs work, be like, I'm going to set goals to meet my needs this year. No, we go, I'm going to set this goal because it's what I think I should do, or I think I'm going to feel good about myself. And I feel good about yourself. You feel good about yourself when your needs are well met. So it's like subconsciously you're trying to get your needs met by achieving that goal. Maybe you think that other people will respect you more, or will respond to you in a different way. Maybe you think you'll finally feel good enough in yourself if you hit this goal. Maybe you feel like there's a whole bunch of reasons that we aim for these goals. And a lot of that is needs. And the problem is that the goals that we're setting don't meet our needs. In fact, a lot of the time they compromise our needs to try to achieve the goal. So we get there and we're like, well, this didn't feel the way I thought it would. Fuck, now what? Like, so then we set another goal.
I find, like, oftentimes when I would set a goal like that and you get there and you're like, this doesn't quite feel as good, because you think you get to the goal, it's all like confetti and celebration. It's like, yay, I achieved it.
Which probably is with us, but it may not feel as good as we thought.
Exactly. But it often doesn't feel the way we think it will. It often doesn't meet the needs that we're trying to meet consciously or unconsciously. The point of that thought just went out the window. I feel like it was good too. Like, people would want to hear it. Damn it. Oh, then we have to hold on to that goal and maintain that goal. And the second that goal isn't there, like, and I hate bringing it to weight loss, especially this time of year. It's something I have dealt with my entire life.
And in actual fact, I don't normally say this on the podcast, but our next episode is going to be not specifically about weight loss, but there is something around weight loss that was a revelation to me a couple of years ago. And it's something that I think everybody who is focused on weight loss as a thing at this time of year needs to hear. So we're going to do our next episode on that. So we will come back to this in a different way. But carry on. I know that you were talking about, like, trying to maintain that goal.
Yeah, like, you can say, all right, it's this number. You hit that number and that feels great. You want to know what doesn't feel great? Every number that isn't that number that led up to that number. Like, if you start, like, I mean, how many times in my life I cannot count did I get there, and I worked my ass off to get there, and yeah, that felt good. I didn't always do it in the healthiest ways, but then, like, as quickly as it came, it fizzled, because the goal wasn't something, the goal was a number. The goal wasn't a feeling. The goal wasn't something I created. It was something it's like, I didn't create it. I stated it, and it's like, and there it shall be. Like, that is what it is. And I always felt there was like this decline.
Well, and it's often an arbitrary thing where it's like, this is the thing that we think is going to have us meet our needs. And like weight loss is a good example of this, where it's like and this is what we're going to talk about on our next episode. Is that this is the goal we think is going to make us feel good, i.e. we think it's the goal that's going to meet our needs. But also, I think that's that's often not the case, because it's not actually related to our needs. It's often compromising our needs to try and get there. But also then what ends up happening is that this is a good example. And you could talk about this with respect to this, with respect to a job, with respect to a house, with respect to a car, whatever it is. Once you get there, you have to be able to sustain that. And if you stop sustaining that, i.e. you put some weight on, or your job becomes under jeopardy, i.e. like you get put under review at work, or you are struggling to make your payments on your house, at that point, it feels like it's slipping away, and something's slipping away that doesn't actually feel that good anyway, because you're still not getting the thing that you were looking for, which is your needs being met. So it's like suck on suck on suck on suck on suck. Like, it's like, it doesn't help. And as I said, we'll get into that a little bit more on the next episode, because I do think it's really important for this time of year. And as I said, what I discovered was, but I think it's so important, and it's so important to needs. So I want to come back to that and give it its due as an entire episode. Anything else before I kind of go back to the exercise? Mm-hmm. Cool. So the first thing we talk about is the words and the emotions, because so often we are miserable in the process of engaging with trying to achieve our goals. And it's like, I want to feel confident. I want to feel fun, like I'm having fun. I want to feel a sense of ease. I want to feel joy. Like there are all these things. And the second you start putting emotions, hello microphone, sorry to people listening if that created a loud sound. The second you put emotions with it, and the emotions you want to feel, all of a sudden it starts to shift our perspective on not just the goal we're trying to get to, but also what the journey to that goal wants to feel like, and what words we want to have associated with it. It's like, I want to feel that, again, it could be, and there's sometimes a blurring of like the words and the emotions, but sometimes there are words we want to associate with it that don't necessarily feel like emotions, and vice versa, which is why we kind of break them into two. It doesn't matter if you've got the same in both columns. But the most important thing is to get clear on what exactly do we want around this area of our life. Then the next thing that we do is we create some outcomes. Now, outcomes, people are like, well, aren't those just goals? Well, when you start to think about them in the context of the emotions and the words, the reason we do the emotions and the words first is because it means that we start to create these outcomes with, and the next part of it, in that context. So it's like, no longer are we just trying to create this achievement level that we think is going to meet our needs. And obviously, if you're working with me as a client, we're going to be doing it in alignment with our needs, because that's the whole point. But when we start to create the outcomes, again, the outcomes very rarely are quantity focused. They're not quantitative in nature. They are, I would like to have made some progress in discovering what the next career path is for me. I would like to have to have gone on more dates this year. I would like to have and so this is things like the outcomes are things that are, they're not things that are, they're things that are achievable. And there are things that you can do in alignment with the words and the emotions. Because like, it's like, if the outcome is, I want to find the love of my life this year, we can't guarantee that. We don't know who you're going to meet. But it's like, what are the outcomes that we think are going to move it? Like, ideally, in an ideal world, we're going to want to find the love of our life, maybe. Well, one of the outcomes that's going to help us to get there is to go on, meet more people, go on more dates. engage in activities where I may start to meet people who I've got things in common with, who might be a good fit for me. So the outcomes are slightly different. And then what we do, and the final quadrant, I normally do this in like a 4 on a piece of paper. So we put like lines on the middle, vertically and horizontally, and we have the emotions and words, emotions, and then we have outcomes and intentions. The intentions is the most important quadrant, because the intentions are, what are the things that I'm going to do this year? What are the ways I'm going to show up that will help me in the move in the direction of the outcomes, and also will actually keep me in the emotions and the words that I want to be associated with. So for example, it may be, I'm going to be open to connecting with more people, because maybe the thing that has stopped us from meeting somebody in the past is that we've been like, I was just saying to Serena, I was at the zombie bike ride recently, and I saw this little girl with this shirt on saying, "Ew, people." And I'm like, yes, I love it. I want one of those for right now, because I'm not in a very people-y place right now. But I'm like, if you're going out there where your face and your body language and everything about you is going, "Ew, people," chances are you're probably not going to meet that many people. And chances are people who may be interested in coming and connecting with you might be like, "Oh, that looks like an ew people person. Maybe I won't go and speak to them."
Or
so
you might connect with other ew people, and that's not who you're trying to get. If you're not an ew, like we all go through ew people moments, but
yes,
I think you can tell Claire is not that on the general.
mm-hmm. So it's like, what are the intentions? It's like, okay, I'm going to show up for when I'm meeting people in a way where I'm open and I'm willing to connect. Also, if I want to meet somebody who is a really good fit for me, I need to be transparent about who I am. And like, again, like one of the things that can help us be more transparent about who we are is if our needs are well met and we recognize our value, and we recognize that if somebody doesn't want to be with us, that's not because there's something wrong with us. It's because we're not a good fit as people. Like that's a big shift that can make a difference when we come to the dating world. Well, sure, we'll do a podcast on that at some point. But it's like, at that point, it's like, I'm totally forgotten what the beginning sentence was. Like, where did I start this with?
Intention?
If I want to find the right people, then I need to be able to show myself. I need to show who I actually am. Because if I hide who I really am to try to please people into liking me, then I'm probably not going to find somebody who's actually a good fit for me as a relationship. So it may be that I'm going to be a little bit more honest, a little bit more forthcoming, a little bit more transparent, and a little bit more open with who I am as a person, knowing that if somebody doesn't like that, that just means we're not a good fit for each other. But more importantly, if somebody does like that, they're far more likely to be a good fit for me in terms of a long-term relationship. So this is the thing, is that like the focus being on the outcomes means that we tend to sacrifice a lot of our needs to try to achieve that outcome. The good thing with this exercise is what it does is it starts to bring in some of our other needs in how we want to start moving in the direction of the things that we want to create. But we do it in such a way that is in alignment with the emotions that we want to experience. And if we are experiencing emotions that feel good to us, chances are we're doing things that we love, which means that we're probably going to be. So it's like, if I wanted to go and find, okay, it's a great idea. And I don't know why I think relationships are a big thing at this time of year, where it's a lot of people are very focused on, I want to get into a relationship this year. But it's like, if I want to go and meet a guy, any guy, if I'm just wanting to go on more dates this year, if I go to a sports bar, I'm probably going to meet a lot of men. Are those likely to be the men that I want to interact with? Probably not. Now, if I wanted to go and meet a man who maybe had something more in common with me, maybe I might go to a social justice rally, or maybe I would go to a dance class, or like there are lots of different, like, so it's like the sorts of things that we can do change when we start to get very clear on what the emotions, the words, the outcomes, and the intentions are. And the intentions is the important part, because that's the thing that you want to be doing something about. And the good thing with the intentions aren't generally quantifiable. They're not things like where it's like, I have to do this amount of stuff. It's like, what are the things? So it's like, maybe it's like, and this is what I do is with the clients, I'll say, pick 1 or 2 things from your intentions list and take action on those in a given week. If it feels in alignment, if it doesn't feel in alignment, chances are it's probably not the time to be doing it, because you're probably not going to be in the best space to meet somebody if you're like, oh, I don't want to meet anybody this week. Fuck it, I've got to do one of my intentions. Go on a date. You're not going to show up in the best place to find the love of your life. Even if you found the love of your life, you probably wouldn't realize it because you'd be in your little people space. And it'd be like, this isn't working. So it's like, but what you can do is you can then say every week I'm going to do one of the things on my intentions list, or every couple of weeks. And again, you can cycle these through where one thing maybe is like one area of focus might be health and wellness, one might be relationship, one might be career, one might be financial. There's lots of different ways of approaching this. But I think if you focus on the intentions and combine that with what we were talking earlier about focusing on the things that you are doing and noting the things that you are doing, you're making progress. So if you're engaging with those intentions, you're making progress. If you've gone on like 12 dates in the first 6 months of the year, that's 12 more dates than you probably did if you weren't going on any dates in the previous year. You're making progress. Have you found the perfect man yet? Possibly not. Woman, non-binary person, whatever it is that you're looking for. Maybe not, but you're making progress. And what you'll find is that, like, one of the things that I found is that in my history, and I worked as a relationship specialist for years, you don't want to meet the person that you're looking to have a long-term relationship with on your first date out there for a couple of reasons. One, you tend to be a little bit pressured, and it tends to be a little bit nerve-wracking, and it tends to be a little bit like it's a little bit like pancakes. You're probably going to throw the first one away because you got to get the hang of it and figure out how it works. But also, if
show up to a date, you're my first pancake, just so you know.
But also, if you show up and the first person you meet is the perfect person, sometimes we don't know whether they're the perfect person or whether they're just the first person who seems to be a fit. Like, you want to have experienced a few different people. So you go, no, I'm not picking you because you're the first one who's come along, or I think's halfway decent. It's like, no, I've experienced all these other people. You're the one I choose. And that's an entirely different experience. But we focus on like, have I met the man of my dreams? Have I met the woman of my dreams? Have I met a non-binary person in my dreams or people of my dreams? No, I failed at the relationship things, rather than focusing on, here's the progress I'm making. Here's what, and also as you engage with these intentions, you learn more, and you may actually go back and refine this thing that you've created at the beginning of the year. I'm like, actually, I forgot to put fun on there. Where I want it to feel easeful. I want it to feel laid back. I want it to feel all these things. And I go to every date and I'm like, God, I'm bored as hell. I want some fun in this. Okay, I'm adding fun to this now. So now what are the things I can do that maybe will help me to meet people, will also make me mean that I have fun? That's when maybe I go to a dance class, or I go rock climbing, or I go to a sailing club, or whatever it is. I do things that will feel fun to me, and I may meet people there as well. So it's like, this is a very different way of approaching this. But in my experience, it's far, far more effective. And you're going to create something that not only gets you to a certain goal. I mean, you probably won't get to the certain goal in quite the same way, but you're going to have progress. You're going to appreciate the progress, and you're going to enjoy the process of getting there. Because how many times we set a goal and we're miserable until we hit that point, have a moment of a woohoo, and then it's like, I don't feel good enough yet. I'm going to set another goal that's 3 steps ahead of this, and then another goal, and then another goal. And we end up doing that because we don't realize the goals we're setting aren't actually going to ever achieve the thing that we're looking for, which is to have our needs fulfilled. I mean, you could just skip all of that and do the needs program and figure out how to meet your needs. And then it becomes an entirely different game changer, because then you get to start to create, then you get to start to enjoy life in a very different way, without this kind of pressure of these societal expectations that we think are going to create this magic life that we're all of a sudden going to be like, yay, I feel amazing. From the experience of both of us and a lot of our clients, it's not the case. So approaching it in a different way and using the needs as the kind of basis for that really does create something entirely different that feels really good in the process.
You said something a little bit ago that really made me think, like, the way that we kind of approach goal setting, or not goal setting as it is, it allows you to be where you're at. Because I can set a goal today for tomorrow, and a million fucking things can happen between this moment and that moment.
Yeah.
That makes that goal either no longer relevant, no longer obtainable, no longer a thing. It might just be like, you know what? I don't fucking care right now. Like, there are so many times that I've set goals and I've pushed myself. And a lot of times, like, you know, like, you physically push yourself, whether it's, you know, through doing something like working out, or being like, you just need to rest. Your body is begging to rest. And you're like, no, I got to do this, 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 and this. And then you're compromising your foundation function need to the point where it's going to, like, your foundation function need will stop you if you don't listen to it long enough. It will be like, oh no, you don't get it. You're done. And we've both been there too, where like our bodies are like, you are not heeding my warnings. So like, you shall listen now. And like being able to kind of have this, like, okay, it doesn't have to look exactly like this. So I can take a day of rest because I know this is better for me. And tomorrow, chances are, if I'm rested today, I'm going to hit tomorrow with a different kind of stride. And it took me so long to realize, like, the compromise to my other needs, trying to meet the goal that meets something that I shouldn't even be focusing on, like a growth need, when my foundation function is, you know, screaming for attention. But you can, like, I don't think a lot of people listen to where are you actually at, like, in the moment.
Well, and I also think like that tying it into kind of other areas of kind of goal setting, this is something that we've experienced. It's like, a great example of this is our program. Now, our program has been ready to launch multiple times. Ready to launch. So let's look at what's happened this year. So Serena and I, as you will have known, if you're a avid podcast listener, you'll know that we took a break from podcasting to get the content finished. And we had a goal in mind. But again, we didn't set it as a goal. We had a target that we were aiming for, which was, okay, we want to get the content finished by this point. Now, we could have hit that goal. We could have done. But partway through, we got some feedback. And if you listen to the last episode, you know how much we love feedback. We got some feedback that we were like, oh shit, we need to include this here. Now, we could have still hit that goal, but we also know we wouldn't have done the program justice, ourselves justice, the people who were going through the program justice, if we had not included that information. So we pivoted and we went, okay. And this is when we went, what do we do? Because I kind of feel like we should re-engage with the podcast. And we were like, well, let's try doing it in a more casual way, a less formal way than the way we've done it previously. And let's see what happens. And so that's what we've done. And it's like, now we're going to be going, when I get on the boat, that's one of my things that I'm going to be like, let's get on with this content, because there's stuff that wants to be moving forward. Now, did we hit the quote unquote goal that we hit? No. But if we'd hit that goal, we would have been compromising across the board. And we don't do that. So we went, yeah, we're not doing that. Okay, cool. Right. In which case, we're going to reevaluate whether what we'd set out to do was actually in alignment with our needs anymore. And the truth is it wasn't, because we knew that not doing this could compromise people's needs. That's not okay with us. So we went back and went, okay, we're going to renegotiate this. And then we said, okay, we're going to aim to get this done by the end of the year. Then multiple worlds got turned upside down. And we went, we know that we're not going to create good content from that mental and emotional space. Okay, what do we need to do to get ourselves to the place where we can do this? So it's like, and yeah, there are times when it's like, God, this is frustrating. Like, can we just be done with this? Like, we were supposed to be done with this then. But also, we know that when we get done, it's going to feel authentic. It's going to feel like it is as it is meant to be. Now, we're not talking about perfectionism here, because I had a friend of mine come down and visited in May and was like, are you being a perfectionist, Claire? And I gave him an example of one of the things, and he was like, oh, no, that's essential. And I'm like, exactly. Like, we're very good now at going, no, that's good enough. We don't need it to be perfect, but we do need the essentials in there. And so by being able to do this, we're able to pivot, to keep ourselves in alignment with ourselves, with our values, and with what it is that we want to create in the world. And we're also able to allow ourselves the space to be human within this, because so often we try to push ourselves to be superhuman to hit these goals. And in doing so, we actually compromise our needs even more, which is the point of the goal, which means that we feel even less like we're where we want to be when we get to that goal. So it's like through doing it this way, it's been a game changer for us.
And it's also been like, I don't want to say that sometimes when we don't hit our intended, targets or where we think we're going to be, sometimes it feels good to be like, no, we're not doing it. Like we have a nonprofit that we're starting as well. And we had a marketing plan, and it was like XYZ. It was good. It was realistic. It was doable. And we got to a point and we're all on board. And I was like, I don't think we should do this thing here because like where we're at. And I said it to Claire and she's like, same page. And then we said it to the other 2 board members and they're like, oh my God, thank God. Like we all would have pushed to reach this goal, to get this thing done, when all of us were like, oh, actually, this feels so much better. Like, and it feels like we're doing things in alignment. And it's like, it's amazing that I think there was such a fear at one point of not hitting goals and targets and all these things that I pressurized myself. I pressurized situations I was in. I pressurized the people that are around me. And now it's like, okay, we're human. You're having a human month. I'm having a human month. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to work together to make this work for all of us. And like, there was a time in my life that I didn't think it could look like that. I would have thought, no, we said we were going to do this. And because we said it, it was our lack of work or trying or whatever that made it that we didn't hit this goal. Fuck that. No, life got in the way and we decided that it works better for us to do it this way. Like,
yeah.
It's
well, and if you think about it in terms of the context of what you just said there, you said there was a point in time where you would have been afraid of not hitting the goal. Why? Because we would be afraid that we wouldn't feel good enough if we didn't hit the goal, or that the need we were trying to meet through hitting the goal wouldn't get met, or that other people would judge us, or we would let other people down. And therefore, and because our value need is dependent on what they think, that our value need, like I
had no follow through because I couldn't get it done. And it's like, yeah,
exactly. It's all those things. And so this is the reason that like, and it's like, this is where kind of the needs has this kind of symbiotic relationship where it's like, yes, if you take care of your needs first and foremost, it makes it much easier to approach goal setting in this way. And if you approach goal setting this way, it makes it much easier to take care of your needs. So it's like this kind of relationship between the two where it's like, the second you start sacrificing your needs to try to get the thing is that we think about it like, well, so I'm sacrificing my needs, but it's to achieve the goal. You're trying to achieve the goal to try and meet your needs. You just don't consciously realize that's what you're doing. And it's like, fuck. As soon as you say that,
this didn't work out the way I thought it would.
And it's like so many people are like, yeah, but I'm doing this because of this, and this. And I'm like, that's that, and that need. And they're like, oh,
oops,
I didn't realize that. Like, okay, yeah, I totally get it. I didn't realize what I was doing. We did this for years and years and years. We did this, and we had no idea why we were doing it. And the second you put the needs lens on it, you go, oh, that's why I was doing it. I'm trying to do this so that I could feel good enough so my value need is well met. Or I could just actually take the time to heal my value need and meet it for myself without all of that extra energy expenditure and actually have it better met. Oh, well, that's a different proposition. Maybe we could try that. And so it's like and this is why we're not saying don't set goals. And if goal setting in its traditional sense works for you, great. What I would ask you to question is, are you sacrificing your needs to try and hit those goals? And if you're trying to hit the goals and you don't think you're doing it to try to meet your needs, answer me, why is it that you need to hit those goals if there's not a needs-based reason for it? Because normally, and everybody's like, oh no, it's not that about my needs. It's about like proving that I can do something. You value need then. It's to support my family. Value need, security need. It's so that I finally feel the way that I've always wanted to feel.
Needs.
Value need. Emotion, experience, expression need. Like when you get underneath the surface, it's like, because this is what society expects of me. Value need, security need. Yeah. Like, I mean, literally, you give me a reason. I mean, this is one of the things that we set, like one of the challenges we set within the program. Like, we don't know of a problem in the world that is not in some way based in needs. If you think that there is a goal setting that is not somewhere based in needs, I would love for you to tell us about it, because I love to test my theory. Like the only way to make sure it's robust is to test it and test it and test it. So I have people come to me and they're like, well, what about this? And I'm like, you mean this and this need? I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was a need thing. Like, no, most people don't. And that's the thing, is that we want to try and get these subconscious needs up into the conscious mind. And that's a good thing about starting to learn about your needs, is that no longer are they subconsciously pulling the strings of your goal setting behavior. You can be intentional. You can be like, okay, I want to do this because I think it's going to meet this need, and actually figure out, yeah, that is something that's going to meet that need. Great. So for example, if one of the things that you're wanting to do is you're trying to create more financial security for yourself because you think it's going to build your security, absolutely is that going to be a good thing. Now, what that financial security looks like. What do we mean by financial security? Are you telling me that I need to have 5 billion in the bank? That's not about security. It may be that you're trying to create security by having an excess, but that's not a security thing. That is making up for a lack of security in other ways a lot of the time and trying to overcompensate for it. So we're not saying that goals don't necessarily connect to needs, but a lot of the time, most of the goals that we have are not goals that are in alignment with actually supporting our needs effectively. They're things that we will tend to compromise our needs for on the way. Anything else you want to add to this?
I'm good.
Okay, well, we wish you a very happy new year. We hope that you have great celebrations, and we look forward to it. We would love for you to share with us, like, maybe what some of the things are that you want to create this year that aren't goal setting. Maybe some of the things, like, what are some of the areas of life? What are some of the emotions you want associated? What are some of the words associated with? What are some of the intentions you're setting that feel in alignment with those? If you'd love to share them with us, so we would love to hear them. But we'll be back next week in the new year, 2025, with a new episode. Between now and then, remember to take care of yourselves, stay safe, and to continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, to support yourself in making progress with your intentions and outcomes, you want to start training your brain to start focusing on things that you are doing rather than things that you're not.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.